So, good morning. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our February Small Business Seminar on how to grow your net worth by growing your network. I'd like to introduce our speaker for this morning. Jim Ries is the legal business development guy at Offit Kurman and one of the most referred lawyer connectors in the country. His extensive network, familiarity of hundreds of attorneys, and his reputation as a great listener allow Jim to put business leaders and families of wealth into the right consultations with the right attorneys every day. As Director of Business Development, it's Jim's job to know which attorney among the almost 300 at Offit Kurman would be the best fit for any prospective client. If you haven't met Jim yet, or you know someone who might need an attorney, you should reach out to Jim. As a master networker and a master connector, Jim is a good guy to have in your network. We'll have time at the end for questions, but if you have a question as we're going through, you can type them in the chat or save them for later in the program. So Jim, the floor is yours. Let me go ahead and share the screen.
Here we go.
Perfect.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for that nice introduction. Pleasure to meet the few people who are here this morning who came and braved the traffic at any rate to attend in person. We've got 4 very nice people here in person, and those of you who are online, thank you. Oh, we now have 5. We're now up to 5. Do I hear 6? Thank you for being here in person and virtually also. I know you all have busy days and we're all short on time, so I appreciate you attending this. We're going to talk about growing your net worth by growing your network. Okay, it's a little bit of a play on words, and you see that field of corn behind you. There's a reason why I have that. But I want to start, and I want to share a story. Who remembers where they were in January of 2009? Anybody know where they were in January of 2009? I'm going to try to advance the slides. I'm going to walk over here and see if I can get this slide to go.
I remember when where I was on 9/11.
Okay, so I know where I was, and I'll never forget it. So in January of 2009, on a Friday afternoon, I was in a conference room like this size with 35 people in the room, in a small conference room this size. And I was about to tell my 35 employees that our company was going to close. So I remember the first words that came out of my mouth were, "It's with a heavy heart." And that's how I started my explanation to our 35 employees who were really almost like family members that our company was going to close and we were going to have a couple series of layoffs and have a final close around August of 2009. So I was the shoe guy, as the slide suggests. And what does that mean? I worked for my family's business called D. Myers and Sons. We were importers and distributors of ladies' shoes. That's right, ladies' shoes. We were in business for 99 years in Baltimore. We had a fabulous operation over on the east side, they call it, on Erdman Avenue. Business was great, but through difficulties, we just had to decide to close down the business. So here I am in a conference room like this with 35 employees / family members telling them that we were going to be closing. It was a rough day. There were a lot of tears, a lot of crying, from me included, and it was tough. It was really tough. But what do? This stuff happens, and so I had a choice. We have a choice when something like this happens. You either roll over in a ball and feel sorry for yourself, or you get some energy and you figure out what you're going to do. What can you do? Like, life is not over. It's just a hurdle that we have to get over. Fortunately for me, I had a lot of support from family and friends, and I figured things out. Like my kids say, "Dad, you run stuff, So you'll figure it out and you'll find another place that you can run. So I gave it a lot of thought, and that then it was August in 2009 was the last time I left that office. And I can remember there was a vestibule with a heavy metal door. I remember closing that door behind me for the last time. I had the keys, and that I knew that was going to be it, and it was pretty sad. But again, we've all had these kinds of issues in our life and challenges. You got to face them head on. So what I decided to do was meet as many people as I could, centers of influence in the greater Baltimore region. So I would reach out to someone and say, hey, can I have an hour of your time? This was back, way before COVID, when we were meeting in person all the time. No one would think to meet via Zoom. I would meet with people at their office, usually owners of businesses, have a conversation just about what my skill set was, et cetera. And at the end of the meeting, I would say, who can you introduce me to that I should meet? So I would meet John Doe, who's president of ABC Widget Company. And at the end of the conversation, hopefully he would like me and want to help me and say, you need to talk to these three people. And he would make an email introduction, introduce me to three high-level people. And then I would have meetings with them, and each of them would introduce me to three more people. So where am I going with this? That's how I built my network. I built my network, or back in the day, what we called a Rolodex. Mm-hmm. I built my network by reaching out to people, meeting with them, impressing upon them that I was a good guy, that they could help, and asking them for introductions to other people like them. And so my network grew exponentially in the Baltimore metro area. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about networking. So I want to review a few networking concepts, and then we're going to talk about specific strategies and tactics to do before, during, and after a networking event, because I know everybody here in person and listening is going to networking events. That's what we do. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here listening to me. So here's some numbers that are really important for you to understand. Firstly, your network is your net worth. That's what I said before, and think about that. So for me, my business closed, my network became my net worth. 95% of professionals agree that face-to-face connections are key to successful long-term business relationships. By the way, I'm happy to share the slides because I see people are already taking photos. We're going to share these slides because there's some really good stuff on here, and I'm happy to share it. 95% agree that face-to-face connections are key, and we all have proof because COVID was tough, and although many of us still believe, and I'm one of them, that working remotely for me is very efficient, nothing takes the place of being face-to-face with somebody.
Amen.
Amen. 85% of jobs are filled via networking. Now, when you're in job transition, you better be networking, and you better be on social media. You better be looking at stuff. You better be talking to people. You can't be bashful. You have to let people know that the term I used when I was in career transition was career transition. You can't be a sad sack and say, oh, I got fired and now I don't know what to do, or my company closed, now I don't know what to do. Find a way to make that a positive move for you. I'm in career transition looking for blank, and I'm excited about what my next chapter is going to look like.
Jim, have you found that the whole way of transitioning has changed since COVID with hiring and?
Absolutely. Yeah. Plus, with such a low rate of unemployment, that has changed things greatly. 79% of Americans agree that networking plays a vital role in their career progression. 79%. So again, you better be out there networking. 78% of startups get off the ground because of networking. Now, I'm sure some of us are startups or were startups. or we do business with startups, and they're out there. And they're out there trying to build relationships and make connections via networking. All that said, only 48% of people stay in touch with their network. So, I'll talk about this later, but we know it's important, but we don't always follow up. That's where many of us fail, myself included. We go to networking events, we don't follow up. We meet really good people, we don't follow up. So we don't stay in touch, and that's a big, big mistake. We got to correct that. All of us do. 41% of people want to network more often. I hear it all the time. How many events do you go to a night, Jim? How many during the week? Well, 2, 3, sometimes 1. Do I like it? I'm working from home, usually in sweats and a fleece. And at 4:30, I got to go put a suit on and look good. And some days it's like I just can't do it. But I'll get into that too. It depends on the event. It depends on the event. You guys here at the Central Maryland Chamber have wonderful events, and they're great for your attendees. So those are events that you want to attend for sure. So interesting that people know the importance of networking, oftentimes don't follow up or let it slip by, and actually people want to network more. Now look, we have families, we have other responsibilities. It's understandable that most of us want to network more. What gets in our way is time. You are 24% more likely to land customers with in-person networking. Okay, that right there should be enough incentive for us to get out and network. 24% more likely to land customers with in-person networking. I'm going to hold that so you get a good picture. So the fact is you're already networking more than you think. Even if you were to say, well, I don't really network that much because I get referrals, but you really are. I'm not sure if you can read this. It's a little small, but we're networking whether we know it or not because you're attending conferences, industry conferences. Many of us attend industry conferences now that we're beyond COVID. Let's say industry conferences are back, and they're back in a big way. How many people do you know who are going out to Vegas to trade shows? Trade shows are back with a vengeance. So that's networking. Going to events like this is networking. Going to in-person events is networking. Going to your chambers of commerce is networking. So we're already networking whether we know it or not, whether we want to admit it or not. All right, so you saw my first image, which was a field of corn. So I like to say that growing a network is like growing corn. So how do you grow corn? You plant seeds, you then water the seeds, and then you harvest the corn. I'm going to compare this to networking. So planting the seeds is in networking, getting people to know you and like you. All right. That's showing up at an event with a smile on your face, having conversations with people, being interested in what other people are doing. It's not really hard to get people to know you and like you. We're good people. We're put on this earth as good people. And I think it's a natural thing to have people to get to know us and like us. So that's planting the seeds. Now growing and watering and taking care of the soil and all that stuff, that's a little tougher. And that's what I call, on the networking side, getting people to trust you. So you might be wondering, how do I get people to trust me? They've just met me. I'll give you a great way. George just gave me a note on his card. If I follow up today, we've already built trust. He's like, well, this guy, he did what he said he was going to do, so I trust him. If I don't, then he's not going to trust me. Well, he just blew me off. He said he was going to do something and follow up and send me information, but he didn't. So that kills the trust right there. In my old business, in the shoe business, one of my colleagues used to say, if Jim writes it down on his notepad, it gets done. I used to have a little notepad that fit in my shirt pocket with a pen, and I'd make a note, And if I wrote it down, it was done. So we all keep lists. Mine is on my phone. And, I feel really good. We all feel good when we accomplish and take care of some of the items on our list and scratch them off or delete them from the list. So that's part of trust. When you tell someone, you meet someone at a networking event and you exchange cards and you say, you know what, I'm interested in Central Maryland Chamber. I've never been a member of a chamber. Can you send me more information? So if you follow up, you've gained trust immediately. If you don't, it's the reverse. So that's the trust part, and that's the difficult part. So get people to know you and like you, pretty easy. We're good people. Getting people to trust you, got to get over that hurdle. And then the harvesting of the corn is what I equate to in networking, is getting people to need you. Now, you can't make people need what you sell, but many of us sell something that is necessary for every business, maybe every year. If you're selling benefits or insurance, every year there's an anniversary date. So every year, that prospect is someone that you could meet with. Sadly for me, selling legal services, that's not the truth. People have to need me. So I find that people generally know me, like me, trust me, which is great. But if they don't need me, there's no referrals until they do need me. I love the roles that people have with companies where there's an inherent need, at least once a year, if not more often. So one of you here does commercial and residential cleaning. Well, you got to have your commercial and residential space clean. So there's a need there. So I have a long sales cycle selling legal services. Many of you have shorter sales cycles. So that's, again, Kim, can you advance? That's the similarities between growing corn and growing your network. So let's talk about planting corn, or the networking equivalent of getting people to know you and like you, and how to master a networking event. So prepare. You got to prepare before you go to an event. You really got to take not a lot of time. Take 5 minutes, even while you're driving there, and think about what's your purpose, who's going to be there, what kind of people, what kind of conversations might you have. So the great quote that failing to prepare is preparing to fail, and it's very true in all aspects of our lives. So number one, make sure the event you're going to is the right event for you. What do I mean by that? Are the right people going to be at that event? Is this an event for small businesses and you do business with small businesses? Go to that event. If this is an event for local corporations and you are in the small to mid market like we are, I'm probably not going to that event. All right. So as best as you can figure it out, go to an event where the people you need to be around are going to be there. Could be referral sources, could be end users that buy what you sell. So if you're in commercial real estate, you wouldn't go to an event that's a bunch of residential realtors. It's not your market. So give some thought. If you need more information, you can always contact the people who are putting on the event. They'll share information with you. They may not give you the registration list, but they'll tell you the types of people that are coming there. Master your elevator pitch. People have an attention span of like 10 seconds. If you don't catch their attention in 10 seconds, you've lost them, because they're looking around and they see a friend over there or over there. So master your elevator pitch. Elevator pitch should be something catchy. Don't describe every single thing that you do. An elevator pitch should be laid out so that the person you're talking to is going to ask you follow-up questions. So mine is, I rescue business owners who are working with the wrong attorney. They're like, well, someone's going to say, well, what does that mean? So it can't be too crazy, but you want them to ask you more questions about what you do. And then thirdly, as I mentioned before, connect with the sponsors, the speakers, connect with the people who are putting on the event. So, how many people here connected with me before this event? I can tell you not many. Now, maybe I'm connected with some of you, but I don't recall anybody reaching out and saying, hey, I look forward to hearing you or seeing you tomorrow. That's a miss because how hard is it on LinkedIn to connect with someone and say, hey, I see you're going to be presenting tomorrow for Central Maryland Chamber. Look forward to meeting you. And let's connect here on LinkedIn. So connect with the sponsors, connect with the speakers on LinkedIn. I say target 3 people. When I go to a networking event, I want to walk away with 3 business cards. Count it 3, not 30. I'm not in the business of collecting business cards. I'm in the business of building relationships. So I want 3 business cards. I want to have 3 really good conversations with people. Okay? Don't go and expect to meet everybody in the room. Get there early and check out the name tags. You can even take a photo of the name tag, but go there early and say, oh, this person's coming. And by the way, if there's someone that you see is coming, because again, you're probably not going to get the registration list before the event because they're well protected. But when you get there and you see the name tags and you see, Jane Doe is going to be there, and you say to Kim, hey, Kim, I don't know Jane. Can you introduce me to her when she gets here? How easy is that, right? Kim would be happy to do that. So ask the people who are sponsoring the event to make introductions. Meet the speaker, get there early, meet the speaker at the event. Hey, I connected with you last night. Thanks for accepting my LinkedIn connection request. I can't wait to hear what you have to say today, etc. And then prep for some curious questions, okay? Forget the weather, forget the Ravens, the Orioles, the traffic. There's got to be something better to talk about. So what's a really good question for any networking event is, oh, what brings you here? Are you a member of the chamber? Are you a member of one of the partner groups that's putting on the event? Have you ever been to these events before? What brought you here? It's a good way to kick off the conversation. I also believe that asking about what people like to do personally and maybe a little bit about family without prying, because some people are like, oh no, you can't talk about family. Some people don't want to talk about it. I've never met anyone who didn't want to talk about their kids or grandkids, in my case.
Or dogs.
Or the dog.
Or cats.
Right. So I don't think that's off base to ask about family or what you like to do. And I'll get into that later also. So those are some tips before the event. During the event, here are some things to do during the event. Be yourself because everyone else is taken. If you fake it, everybody you meet is going to know you're faking it. We've all met those people who fake it, right? We know them. It's like, that guy is so full of BS. There's no way. There's no way that guy is real like that. So be yourself. And if, by the way, if you're an extrovert, that's okay. Don't pretend to be, if you're an introvert, that's okay. Don't pretend to be an extrovert. So that could be really uncomfortable. If you're like standing in the corner, I don't suggest that you do that, but don't be like up in everyone's face like you're this big extrovert when you're really uncomfortable doing that, because people will notice that. Be yourself. Be interested, not interesting. If you're interested, you're asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
If you're interesting, guess what? You're doing all the talking. That's not good. So I have people tell me all the time, I think I have a knack for asking good questions. People say, wow, you're asking really good questions. I hear that at least once a week. So what it is while they're talking, I'm thinking of the follow-up question because I want them to keep talking. The more they talk, the more I learn about them, their business, their family, what they like to do, whatever it is. That helps build a relationship. Hopefully, they will also turn the table and ask you. That doesn't always happen, which is a big miss, in my opinion, because it happens to me a lot, because I'm asking all the questions. Here's a great thing, and I'm going to share the slide so you can see this. Use the Ford method. Has nothing to do with a car. F is for family. So this is a reminder for things to discuss with the people that you meet, questions to ask. Ask about their family. That's the F. Ask about their occupation is the O. Ask about recreation, which is, you know, do you like to hike? Do you play ice hockey? Do you play tennis? Do you play golf? Are you into pickleball craze? What do you like to do when you're not working? And then D is a little weird. It's dreams. I call it goals. I'm never going to ask someone, what are your dreams? I think that's a bit corny. But so that's why I use the word goals. But I'll say, you know, especially as it relates to business, you know, what are your goals? What do the next 6 months look like? What are your goals? Because they're going to give you enough information where you can ask about their goals. So that's the Ford method. Here's some things that you don't want to do. First of all, you don't want to be one of these three people. The snacker. You've seen it. This is the guy or the gal that goes to all the events and all they do is eat. They eat, and they drink, and they're really not interested in meeting people, but they just got a meal. I'm the opposite. I come home from networking events and my wife every single time. So did you eat? I'm like, stop asking me. The answer is no, I didn't eat. You can't really eat and have conversations because you'd be spitting chicken at people, and that's not a good look. Don't be a ghoster. A ghoster is the person that doesn't follow up. They collect business cards and you never hear from them. So I'm not sure what they're doing with business cards, but maybe filling up their desk or something. Don't be a ghoster, and don't be a dealer. Man, this is the worst, and I see this way too often. Somebody comes with a stack of business cards, and you guys are talking, and I just come up and go and start dealing cards. Like, I actually have pulled people aside and say, what are you doing? You don't even know these people, and what makes you think they want your card? Like, that's no way to network. So don't be someone like that. Don't start a conversation with a business card. Don't start by selling. Again, people are smart, and if you're selling and pushing product or services, they're going to be like, oh man, I got to get away from this person. I'll just get another drink or tell them I got to use the men's or ladies' room. Don't go in with a strong sell. And don't treat it like speed dating, which I talked about before. If you go in to meet three people, it won't be like speed dating. But if you're going to try to meet everyone in there and you're looking around and like, there's someone I need to say hi to, it's a bad look. So, you know, networking is like everything else or like most things. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So don't treat it like speed dating. Here's where everyone fails. This is after the event. You got to follow up. So you get home, you got 3 business cards, you put them in your, you know, your drawer and you forget about it. That doesn't work. My suggestion is you get home and before you start whatever it is you're going to do, like reading emails or taking care of the kids or having dinner, take those 3 cards, add those people to your contacts, Outlook, CRM, whatever you use, and connect with them on LinkedIn. At least do that much. Okay. I would suggest that you follow up if they're really good contacts for you. I would suggest that you follow up within 24 hours with an email and say, you know, find something to send them. Great talking to you. You know, you were talking about your German Shepherd. I happen to just see this article about this German Shepherd, blah, 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 whatever it is. So find a reason to reconnect with the people because they'll forget about you if you don't reconnect with them. So again, put them in Outlook, your CRM, connect on LinkedIn, and always when you connect on LinkedIn, you do it with a comment. You never just hit connect. It's like, great to meet you at the Central Maryland Chamber event. I hope to see you soon. And then you follow up with an email and just find something that would be relevant within the next few days, and keep that conversation going. So that was the pretty much the planting of the seed. Now we're going to talk about growing the corn, growing the seed, getting people to trust you. This is the tough part. The planting is the getting people to know you and like you at a networking event. The trust is something different. and much more important. Because as I said before, people are going to get to know you and like you. The trust is tough. So trust comes through connecting and making good connections. So firstly, networking and connecting are two different things. Networking is about knowing more people. It's quantity. Connecting is about knowing people more. It's a little play on words, but again, networking, knowing more people. Bam, I got this huge network. Connecting is going deeper with people and knowing people more. So some thoughts about how to connect with people. I like to say that relationship building is learned on the playground, not in the classroom. So you're probably thinking, what in the world does that mean? So in my opinion, relationship building is really based on our soft skills, our ability to be ourselves, our ability to ask curious questions, to be a good listener, to listen more than we speak, to slow down and to realize that this is not speed dating. So these are skills that we and our kids learn on the playground, really not in the classroom. So there's no textbook, in my opinion, that can teach you how to network. It's really soft skills, or what they call today, it's emotional intelligence, or EQ. I like to use this phrase that I got from somebody, a woman who's wonderful on her LinkedIn stuff, and it is "show me you know me." So when you are connecting with somebody, show them that you know them, especially when it comes to email communications. That subject line, we all know, is most important. If the subject line hits that person between the eyes, they're going to open that email and they're going to read it. So if you met someone at a networking event, they talked about their German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd's name was Roscoe, then your follow-up email maybe says Roscoe, and they're like, wow, they remembered. So show me you know me. LinkedIn has tons of information, and when you connect with someone on LinkedIn, you can see your mutual connections and say, hey, I see you're friends with Joe. He used to be my neighbor. That's really cool. Let's connect here. I'd love to talk about blah, 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 whatever it is. Maybe they live in Chicago, and you and your family went to Chicago and did the river cruise. You might say, oh, I see you live in Chicago. We had a great trip to Chicago last summer. Loved it. Can't wait to go back. So there are ways to connect with people, but show them that you know them. There's so much information out there, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, and it's not stalking. Just do your homework. Don't stalk, but do your homework. And then maintain that giver mentality. I don't use the term give to get, because that implies that you expect something in return. And honestly, you should never expect anything in return, because you will be disappointed. Give because you want to give. I did a webinar on referrals a couple weeks ago, and something that people don't realize, and I was talking to someone yesterday, when you give a referral, whether it's making an introduction to someone or referring business to someone, doesn't it make you feel good emotionally? And it gives you that high. So give for that reason. Give because it makes you feel good. And it really does. Don't have expectations. That's when you're going to be disappointed. So how can you become a super connector? Let's talk about that for a minute. Make introductions during networking events. Make introductions via email. If two of us are talking at a networking event and you see somebody standing by themselves, bring them in, make the introduction, especially if there's a reason behind it. And that's something that we lose sight of often. Make sure that there's a reason behind an introduction. Like when you send an email introduction, make it clear why you're introducing these two people. So it might say something like, I may introduce Kim to someone, and the introduction says, Joe owns ABC Widget Company. I was talking to him the other day about where he networks. He wasn't familiar with Central Maryland Chamber, and he'd like to learn more. Kim is blah, blah, blah at Central Maryland Chamber, and, has been there for 5 years, whatever, da, da, da. Please connect for further discussion. So you know why the introduction was made, because someone wants to learn about Central Maryland Chamber, and someone is in Central Maryland Chamber and can provide them with information. So make it clear. Just saying, hey, I want to introduce the two of you. It's like, why? And you're going to pick up the phone and call the person. Why'd you make this introduction? I don't understand. I'm not clear. So make it clear and make it meaningful and relevant. Make it relevant. So make sure it's really clear why the introduction is being made, both at a networking event or via email. Give good referrals. All right. And a good referral is, make sure that the people you're referring to, the provider, let's say, can actually do the work, and make sure it's a really good match. Again, be clear. Be clear. You might want to check ahead of time and call the person you're going to refer to and say, hey, just want to make sure I met so-and-so and they need help with this. Is that something you can do? Yeah, I can do it. Make the introduction. Make that referral introduction. But make sure it's understood, and be a problem solver, because really that's what we are for our clients. Mm-hmm. Our clients have a problem. They look to us to solve it. So do the same thing for your network. Someone in your network has a problem. Maybe they need a commercial landscaper because their commercial landscaper isn't showing up and their place looks awful. So connect them to your commercial landscaper guy or gal, and now you have someone who can solve their problem. That makes you a great connector. And people, you'll build on that, and people like, you got to talk to Joe because he's a great connector. He connects everybody. He's got lots of tools in his tool belt. If you need accounting help, if you need legal help, marketing, staffing, you name it, Jim's the guy to go to. And that's how you become a super connector. So then we get to the point where we have planted the seeds through networking. We have taken care of watering and taking care of the plants through building trust. And now we want to harvest that corn. You can't force it. You cannot force people to buy what you need. But if you have positioned yourself well with the know, like, and trust, when they need you, they will call you. And it helps if you're top of mind. So be active on social media, continue to go to networking events so those people will see you on a regular basis. When they need you, they're going to call the person who's top of mind. So when I receive a referral, here's what I do. Someone will call me, email me, text me, and say, let's say an accountant will text me and say, I have a client who needs someone to review their contracts and agreements that they have. Can you help? Yep, I can help. Well, first thing I do is I ask the accountant, make an introduction so I meet your client. I then meet with the client, usually remotely, for 30 minutes, learn about their business, learn about this particular problem that they have, and make sure they understand how we can solve their problem. Your problem is with contracts and agreements. We have a corporate group. I'll connect you to the right person in our corporate group who can review your contracts and take care of all this work. But before we do that, I'm going to connect me, you, and the attorney, and we're going to have a 3-way Zoom call. And so that's the next step. So I schedule a Zoom call with the attorney and the prospect, and I have an agenda, and I start by saying, I'm here as an advocate for the prospect, okay? I'm here holding their hand remotely. And I want to make sure that prospect asks the right questions about his contracts and agreements, and that the attorney gives him the information he needs. So I'm not going to say a lot during this meeting because I'm not an attorney, but here's what I know. This is about the business. Here's what we've talked about. And then I let the business owner talk, and they usually say, well, you pretty much summarized, and just to share with the attorney, here's a little bit more information. And the attorney says, well, I do a third of the work that I do is contracts and agreements. So I can definitely help you. How long is your contract? Is it 10 pages or 100 pages? To ask a bunch of questions. What's the corporate makeup look like? Whatever questions he might have. And interestingly enough, you won't be surprised. No one asked and no one volunteers information about the fees. What's it going to cost me? So I usually am the bad guy, and I jump in towards the end of the meeting. I said, okay, this has been great. Have we, answered all your questions? Yep. Well, let's talk about fees and timing. So I asked the attorney, based on what they've shared with you, what's this going to cost them, and how quickly can you get to it? So then we get down to the nitty gritty. They talk about fees, they talk about the timing, and the attorney will say, send me your current contract. Let me look at it. Maybe we can use part of it, all of it, none of it. And that will determine what the fees are going to be and how many hours of work it's going to be. And we'll discuss this. So send that to me. I'll send you the engagement letter, And then before we go, I'll say two things. I'll say, have we answered all your questions? Do you feel good about this? Yes, we do. And then I ask, are you speaking to any other law firms? And I asked that because I didn't ask that for the first year, and I would follow up and never get an answer. And that meant they probably went somewhere else. So if you ask, talking to any other law firms, nope, so-and-so referred you, this sounds good, let's get going. So the conversion rate is very, very high at that point because they're not talking to other attorneys. So that's how I do it with a referral. You guys can use that information or not use it, whatever you'd like, or I'm happy to discuss it with you further. So people ask me how I became a master networker, a master connector, Jim Ries, the legal BD guy. And here's how it happened. So I shared at the beginning the woes of my family business and the fact that I didn't roll over dead and that I knew there was life after that wonderful business. I had a couple of jobs in the meantime. And I told you, I networked like crazy. I met lots of people. I followed up. I got to know them. They got to know me, like me, and trust me. And then I always found a reason to drip on people. And that's really important because you've got to stay top of mind. Like the German Shepherd story I told. Here's an example where I dripped on Offit Kurman. So in January of 2013, Offit Kurman was named one of the fastest growing companies in Maryland, law firm. It was in this big publication, local publication called Smart CEO Magazine. Some of you may remember, big magazine. And so I knew Ted Offit, one of the founders of Offit Kurman. So I reached out to him via email, very simple email. Hey, Ted, congrats on being named as one of the 50 fastest growing companies in Maryland. I'm in career transition, looking for an opportunity in management or business development or blending the two together. Who should I meet? That's all I said. He responded and said, thanks for your email. We actually might have a role for you at Offit Kurman. A month later, February 2013, almost exactly 11 years ago, I was hired as part of a professional management team at Offit Kurman. They were very smart and realized years ago that having attorneys managing a law firm is maybe not the best way to build a law firm. So they hired me and two other guys to manage practice groups and the attorneys in those groups. That was 2013. In 2016, Ted Offit and Tim Lynch, who were, two of the managing partners, they came to me and they said, you're doing a fine job in your management, but we've noticed you've been able to bring new clients to the firm. That's not part of your role. You're just supposed to be managing these attorneys, which, by the way, is like herding cats. It's not a pleasant job. So they're like, you're networking at night, like nobody else is doing this. We don't know why you do it, but you're effective. And everywhere we go, people talk about you and they know you, like you, and trust you. So what if you did business development full time? I was like, thank you so much. And that was a turning point in my life to get that opportunity to do what I'm wired to do. I have a great network. People know me, like me, and trust me. And I was off to the races. and the rest is really history. So I built a really nice business, a nice brand for Offit Kurman, especially in the DMV region, because we're pretty much up and down the East Coast. And it's been a very successful relationship for me and Offit Kurman. So I've used my network. I've used the soft skills that I learned mostly from my dad, and it's been great. It's really been great. So that's how I become a super networker, super connector, and I've enjoyed a really good reputation. So that's Jim, the BD guy. If you got any questions, great. If you don't, well, good. But it's been a pleasure being here. I'd love to take questions. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, you can just take a picture of that with your phone. It should work. Otherwise, my cell number and my email is there if anyone would like to connect. Yeah.
I do have one question. Next to your slide, it said grow, it was get people to trust you. Next to harvest, it was get people to know you. What was the one next to plant the seed?
Planting the seed, planting the seed is like you, know you, and like you.
Okay, so
the planting is know you, like you.
Get people to trust you.
Trust
third
you.
is get people to need you.
Exactly. Right. So I think you might have missed the beginning. The know and the like, I'm going to assume we're all good people. We got plenty of people out there who know us and like us. The trust is the tough thing. And I shared some examples of how people can trust you. If you tell someone you're going to do it and you write a note on their business card, if they never hear from you, you're done. If you respond, and to me it's within 24 hours, and say, hey, great meeting you at the event. I told you I'd share some information about Central Maryland Chamber. Here it is. Here's the person to talk to. Here's a little bit about my experience there. You got to follow up. If you don't follow up, you've wasted all that time going to the networking event, getting cards, talking to people, putting their contact in your Outlook and your CRM. What's the sense of doing all that if you're not going to follow up? Got to follow up.
There we go.
Hey, Jim. It's Larry.
Hey.
Boudin.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Jim. Quick question for you. I would say that sometimes there's the opportunity at, whether you say a trade show or larger event, for people to get payables. You're spending a little bit of money, you're able to give out your tchotchkes or whatever, and people pay card or exchange things. How often do you, I would say, I guess it's different for each person, but part of me feels like on one hand, it would be a good way to get some people to the table, but on the other hand, I'd rather walk around and meet people. So how do you gauge events and when you want to actually just go around and meet people versus sitting at a table and maybe not getting as much engagement? People are just grabbing the free stuff and going and not really engaging as well.
Yeah, I back in the day when I was the shoe guy, we did shows all the time. But the value there was being an exhibitor. But there are plenty of conferences. I talk to people all the time who maybe they send more than one person, so they have an exhibition table. But there's two people there because there's one person behind that table and one person walking the floor. So yes, that you should try to do both. That's the answer. And depending on the conference, if you're out in Vegas at some enormous conference, that may not work. So it depends.
I've seen that actually with two people, which makes sense because then they can each take a turn and they could
Right.
also split the fee if their company's not paying for it. They could get the best of both worlds. Thank you.
Yeah.
Should you not have two people, one way that you can overcome that is by how you position yourself and posture yourself. Don't stand behind the table. Be that one
Yeah.
person standing in front of
Right.
the table. And as people come by, engage in communication. That way you're not relying on them walking up, taking a couple of things, putting in their bag and walking away. You're in front of them. You're the first direct line of contact.
Yeah.
So engage them and then show them what your goods are.
I have a question, Jim.
Yeah.
I know I don't want to. Okay, you said when you go to a network meeting, just collect 3 business cards and talk to 3 people, correct?
Your intention should be to have 3 really good, deep conversations.
Okay, there are, let's say, 20, 30 people there. How would you know who to go and talk to?
You do your homework. So you either talk to the sponsors or whoever's putting on the event beforehand to see if you could get the registration list. If you can't, and assuming you can't, you get there early and you see who's coming.
Hmm.
And you get there early, you talk to whoever's putting on the event or the sponsor or the speaker, and you say, hey, I'm in the copier business. I'm looking for small to mid-sized business owners. Do you know any of the people here that I should meet? And ask them to make the introduction.
Okay, good. Thanks.
I got a question.
Yep.
So regarding like strategies, you met somebody and you want to set up a one-on-one sort of solution session or something like that. Regarding like your strategy for setting up like logistics, like time, place, going to a coffee shop, do we want to do Zoom or something? So I know in person's better, but sometimes I always feel kind of awkward. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get some information from them. They're kind of going to do me a favor. Should I try to make this as quick on them as possible? So, hey, do you want to do a 30-minute Zoom? Or should I try to get them to a coffee shop? But then we got to go like, all right, where's this person? What's convenient for both of us? And, an hour. And then you probably want to have an hour conversation in a coffee shop. And there's travel time. So that's like 90 minutes to 2 hours out of the time versus 30 minutes of Zoom. Just, do you have any strategies for determining what you want to suggest? Because sometimes I'll say, hey, we can do this or we can do this or this. And I think giving them choices or like putting the onus on them to make a decision on like this kind of is a barrier. So I was just curious.
So I can share with you what I do, which is not necessarily the right thing to do for everybody, but it's what I do. So I only do business development. Most of you here and online maybe own the company or responsible for operations and business development, marketing, whatever it might be. So business development is typically only one of the hats that you're wearing. It's the only hat that I wear. So my day is typically 30-minute Zoom calls at the top of the hour, and then 30 minutes off, and then a 30-minute Zoom call. So if you looked at my calendar, it would be 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if I have an hour Zoom call, a remote networking group that I'm in, that's for an hour, that's stuck in there. If I go to an in-person networking event in the morning, that's stuck in there, like I was at Strategic Factory last week. So that works for me, but if it's somebody, so that first meeting is generally a Zoom. The second meeting, depending on where I think it could go, could be in person, and I like to do it. I save my coffee meetings and my lunch meetings generally for Friday, so it doesn't disrupt my day. But if it's a great opportunity, I'll do it anytime and any day, any day of the week, anytime. But generally, I do I was just talking to someone on the way here. He's like, "We got to have lunch." I'm like, "Just pick a Friday. That's when I do it." So that works for my schedule, and I'm pretty well disciplined. I try to stick to that because we could spend another hour talk about time blocking and calendar blocking, and we don't have enough time to do anything. So 30-minute Zooms allows you plenty of time to get to know someone personally. I talked to someone the other day for the first 10 minutes about what we like to do when we're not working, but we had 20 minutes to talk about our work. So 30 minutes can do it for me, a Zoom. By the way, if I know someone really well, it's going to be a phone call because I'm afraid in 20 years we're all like going to be blind or something. And they're going to say, well, shouldn't have been doing all those Zoom meetings. So that concerns me. So if it's someone I know, hey, we'll grab a phone call. So no set boundaries, but no question about it. If it's a hot prospect and it's referred to you, I would meet them in person. Interestingly enough, I have not had one law firm client asked to meet in person with me or the attorney. They're just used to doing everything remotely today. There's one exception. If you do a will with us or estate planning, there's a document that has to be signed, and we like to do that in person and witness the signature. Other than that, it's all remote. Yeah.
I'll also add to that we think people are going to do they're still like to put upon by your request, but I find that 98% of the time, they're really pleasantly surprised that you made the ask. Occasionally, you'll run into somebody who'll be a little suspicious of you, but most of the time, people are very happy that you did that.
And I'll add to that. I read something the other day from someone I really respect, and she said, don't ever suggest a day and a time for a Zoom call. I'm like, are you kidding me? I do it all the time, and I think it makes it easy for the other person because 90% of the time, I mean, it's 2 weeks out usually for me anyhow. 90% of the time, it's like, that's great. Want to send a Zoom invite? I'm not going to ask them to do it. So I don't see what's bad about saying, hey, glad to reconnect. Let's do a 30-minute Zoom call. Are you available, March the 4th at 11 a.m. for a 30-minute Zoom call?
I feel like I have a lot of back and forth with people because they're like, sure, I'm available. When are you available? And then
Then you pick up the phone. I pick up the phone at that point.
So
there you go, yep.
Well, that's-
But people don't tend to do that.
I think the calendar link, once,
I just do my email signature and then I.
well, people may not see it, but I will tell you, for me personally, if someone says, yeah, that's great, check my calendar link below in my signature block, thank the Lord. That makes it really easy for me.
Still want to go back and forth about.
I don't know why. That's,
what time it's good and
it's
stuff
like,
that.
why start the dance? There's no reason to start that dance.
Maybe 30% of people will.
Have you ever sold anything online? You can make an incredibly detailed listing. They will still ask you every question that you have in that listing. It's just human nature. How much does it cost? It's right there.
Yeah.
Is it still for sale? It's still listed.
Yeah.
So it's just human nature.
Somebody asked if my pricing on a page, have a one pager for treasure. I'm like, it's above the fold.
Yeah,
You're right.
it's constant every day.
To sell horses, and I had somebody ask me in the ad, there was a picture of the horse, and somebody asked me what color it was. I was like,
That's it.
Right.
That's the
I'm
problem.
not selling you this
Right.
horse now.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions online? We want to try to wrap up so that we're respectful of everyone's time. All right, well, I'm gonna say thank you, Jim, for coming today. It's been a great informative session. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thank you, Jim.